for Orion, and I know we had the same things in Space Station early, development is a very different phase than operations. And it's obvious the words are different, right? People go, yeah, I know they're different. But unless you've lived through it, I don't think you have a good sense for how it's different. And Space Station was a great experience for me at the time, and now I can use it in Orion, and it's really helps me communicate to my team about what to expect. But there are a lot of key things that are different. If you think about, let's talk about the operational phase, which is really where we are in Space Station and where we were in the shuttle for the last 15, 20 years, is that in those two programs, there are changes, right? When the shuttle stopped flying was a change for Space Station. After the shuttle accident, or when we went to aluminum lithium, right? There are changes to those programs that are significant, but a lot of the program is the same. In other words, the foundation is the same, and you're dealing with these major issues, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's easy, but a lot of it's already there, and you're focusing on these issues, which can be hard to do. But when you're in development, you're creating everything from zero. Even when you're working with a contractor like Lockheed or Boeing that has an infrastructure themselves, but on this new program, you're starting from zero. You go from zero drawings to where we were putting out 600 a month. We eventually had 10,000 drawings on Orion. We went from zero parts to having 60,000 parts show up at the ONC. So not only are you creating all those things, but you're creating the team. You've got the NASA team, you've got the Lockheed team, you've got 200 suppliers. You have to get used to these suppliers for this specific thing you're asking them to make now. They have different processes specifically for Orion. So you're really learning all those things, all the way from how the teams work together, how the analysis is different, to how you're subcontracting, to every little mom and pop shop that now you're creating this team. So you go from zero, now you've created this team until you actually get to launch. And it's a huge amount of work. Everything is in flux. Unlike the other programs, like I said, where you're focusing on the major changes. They're doing hard work, but the changes are different. When you're in an ops program, I think people, and I found this because a lot of the people we pulled into Orion had come from an ops background. Most of them were used to the shuttle or the latter part of Space Station, not the early part of Space Station. So they were used to schedules that were fairly firm, right? There were changes, there were risks in those schedules, but they had been operating under those plans for many years, and so they knew where their risks were. When you start from zero and go to 60,000 parts, there's a lot of uncertainty in the schedule. And there's going to be a lot of movement in the milestones as you reprioritize and deal with certain suppliers that fell on their face and other things. They can't get my connectors, all the kind of things you expect to have. So if you're an ops guy, and you can get very stressed by all these milestones moving around because you're not used to that. But I remembered in Space Station and getting the node ready, it was exactly like that. Even with a great company like Boeing, even at the Cape where we had processed shuttles forever, building all that stuff up, there was a huge amount of learning, mistakes, fixing it, and it's not that Boeing did a bad job. It's just when you're starting out, you're applying all the things you know now to this new problem, and there's so many new things that you're going to make mistakes. So we had the same thing in Orion on this first one, on EFT1. It's a great company. We got a good design, but now I got to go out, and these 250 suppliers have got to come through. And you're always waiting on the last box, on the last tube, and you're creating new processes like this welding in a temporary clean room, right? We found some issues with that because we didn't want to create a whole new clean room, and we didn't want to sit for 3 months and do it like we had done it before. We were trying to be aggressive. So you're learning all those things at once. So for me, it was much easier for me to tell the team, hey, this is the way it goes. And it doesn't mean we don't hold the contractor accountable for when they do silly things or make dumb mistakes, and that happens, right? We're human. But we got to be careful of whether we're stressing over the fact that this was an aggressive plan to begin with, and this is hard work to do. So stress over the right stuff, I guess, is what I'd say. So Space Station was a huge, for me, was a huge benefit in knowing what development is going to be like. Now the Orion Lockheed team has this team. We have a subcontractor team. We have a factory that's now built one. We have an analysis team that's worked together. We have contracts guys that have gone through this, right? So now we go build the second copy. It's a lot easier. Now we can work the deltas, right? We're adding some systems. We're adding ESA. But a lot of this other stuff is the same. and we're doing tweaks on those things. So we're starting to get that stability. That's so important. One of the key things then for leaning forward, looking forward for the other exploration elements. So how do you use that experience? Now we've generated with Orion, and we are with SLS as they're building. We have a group of people now that's gone through that. We've seen the lessons with the drawing count, with the part deliveries, with the subcontractors. So it's important one of the best ways to mitigate that on the next one is use those people. Part of the problem with human spaceflight is the gap between development is so long. Even when you think about space station to Orion, so here we are, I would say we were in the depths of development probably last year in 2012, and really the DDT&E for space station was probably, I would say, the really hard learning process was probably done by 2006. So it's 9-10 years, and when you're talking about launch vehicles, it was shuttle, which was in the late 70s, or it's even longer. So it's hard for us to do that, but when we can, it's important to try to utilize that experience. And we did pull over space station guys, as many as I could get when I was working at Orion, who had that experience, so they had some familiarity with it. But that's one of the things that would definitely do. One other thing I would say about space station lessons learned relative to development in this phase is also the political environment and the messaging. Somehow, people, it's funny what people think that we have always had really clear missions, right? Very clear missions, very clear destinations. When in fact, I think that's only happened once, probably when Kennedy said to go to the moon. Because I remember being in space station, and we were always getting picked on about what our mission was, right? Why were we building the space station? Science guys would never say it was for science, right? And so then it became, well, it's leadership, it's engineering, it's partnership, all these things. And so now when you look back, you can pick out, well, here's some great things we learned. But at the beginning, it was never crystal clear about the mission. I know the same is true for the shuttle. So because of all the different requirements they had and all the people they were trying to satisfy, they were trying to find, right? In the end, it was a great way to make a space station. That's not how it started. So today, people worry about Orion, about what's the mission for Orion, as if you don't have a clear landing point, you don't have a program. So I would say that's not consistent with the past. Where Orion and SLS is today is exactly the way we have been in the past. We know for sure you can't do these beyond orbit missions without these vehicles. So we are building the fundamental pieces that allow you to do lots of missions. So that's another thing I learned from station that I know I have a lot of people who get stressed out about, well, we need a mission. Well, that would be swell. I'd like to have some definition on that, but I also know that we got another president coming in, by definition, and they'll want to put their stamp on it. So if I picked a mission today, I would bet my house that will not be the mission that we fly, because they all like to put their hands on it, right? And that's what just happened to us. So we need to recognize the past in that sense, too, that we're very similar to what's happened before, and we were able to succeed with shuttle and space station, and we can do that with Orion and SLS, too. So that's a big one that I know that I learned from space station. It's funny the kind of people I run into, even who've been here a while, who don't remember that the mission definition was always fuzzy for space station, too, and yet we got through it, and yet we built this incredible machine. So.